You see all these folks in the Bible who grow from trials. I asked for trials. I'm kind of an idiot because I got them. But that year was pivotal for me because that took me from, okay, yeah, I believe, but I'm living with the world, to I believe and I want to walk with Christ. And so I would say that's the year that made me a Christ follower. That was when I actually developed a relationship with Christ.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the First Things First, a show where we talk about setting your priorities in the right order to help you fall in love with the job and live out your God-given purpose. Today, I am excited to have a new friend. He is not a fireman. He is a brother in blue. He is in law enforcement, but I am super excited to have just a different perspective, a different conversation with one of our brothers on the other side of the line. So, Adam Kowing, welcome, my brother.
Hey, thanks for having me. And every cop wants to be a firefighter, so I'll fit in somehow.
Hey, you said it, not me. So I can I don't have to make the joke now, but you do have a good mustache, a better mustache than me. So I don't know if that's the just the law enforcement mustache you got going, but if you sign up for the test, you get plus points for that mustache.
Nice.
And my brother from Stash Salt, he'd be very proud of you. So
I know Griffin. I like Griffin.
yeah, there you go. So he's proud of you already. So Adam, so we met online like a lot of guys that I've been meeting lately, and I really love the fact that the internet has made the public safety, the first responder community shrink, smaller. We're able to just connect and just like you and I met, and so really excited. I started following and seeing the videos that you're sharing, the reels that you're sharing. And we were talking just a little bit earlier that whether it's on the fire side, whether it's on the law enforcement side, one thing holds true, and that's just the Bible, Jesus, and the gospel. And so I love to hear you sharing encouraging words and Bible verses. And so I really appreciate you doing that. And I think it's important for us to continue to do that, whether it's for our brothers and sisters in the fire service, whether it's our brothers and sisters in the law enforcement. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah, man. Like Bible says, woe unto me if I don't share the gospel, right?
So yeah, so let's talk a little bit about Adam. So since a lot of people don't know you, being that you are on the other side of the line, and your page is Thin Line Believers, which is it's really cool. It's just as you said, you don't cater just to a specific target audience. So it's just for the first responder community in general for that you're trying to reach. So tell me a little bit about that. Tell me a little bit about the platform, the Instagram page, and what you try to do with that.
Yeah, that's so going back, I think it was 2018, a friend of mine and I, we got to see that there really wasn't a ministry at that time, specifically, in our area anyway, specific for first responders. And how else are you supposed to reach these guys? And we thought, well, maybe we could do a Bible study group, but as you know, first responders schedules are atrocious. And when you are off work, it's not like you really want to go and hang around a bunch of guys that you work with all the time. And maybe you do, maybe you don't, right? But we just came to the realization that that's not going to work. And we've tried it. I've even tried it since then to get these Bible study groups. And even though folks do show up, it's just so inconsistent. So we thought, well, we got to get something out there that's going to, help guys get through these situations that they're in. And so we started with sort of like a newsletter type thing. It was a weekly devotional, and it would, I would just type it up on my phone or whatever and send out a mass email. But those are so impersonal, man. And there's no way to tell, are guys actually reading this unless they come to you and say, hey, I read your thing, whatever. And so we thought, okay, well, maybe this podcast thing is a way to do that. And so I started out with, I think it was like a microphone that plugged into my phone at the time. And so I just started doing that kind of stuff. And then these social media platforms got bigger and bigger. And so I kind of started to condense some of these podcasts down to, little sermonettes, I guess you could call them, and seemed to resonate. And so for about a year, I did one every day. I missed very few days, and I don't really do that as much anymore because I'm busy. But that was a good way to reach some folks and to get some feedback. And of course, there's always the negative stuff, and I had to learn how to deal with that. Initially it was like, man, maybe they're right. Maybe I am, this heretic or whatever. And well, no, I'm not. And so, I just learned how to deal with that kind of stuff. And I don't know, it's connecting with me with guys like you, and had some good feedback, some bad feedback, but that's fine. I try to stay obedient to whatever God's calling me to do. And so that's kind of how Thin Line Believers got started. We tried to do some apparel thinking, oh, this will help pay for some stuff. It doesn't. It doesn't. It probably costs me more than what it costs than what I'm making, so, but that's okay. I just, at this point, I just enjoy doing some stuff, on the side. It's kind of like a hobby anymore, but
Yeah, no, I definitely agree that the cost of doing business for you to be a successful podcaster is one thing, but a generating podcaster is a whole nother level, which obviously that's not why you do this, is not to make money, but it's really just to encourage and equip people to be, more on fire for God. And I appreciate that, because the things that you have said, the things that you have shared have made a positive impact on me. And so I am sure that there are a lot more people out there that are receiving that encouragement and that feedback, and it's blessing their lives. So I once again, I appreciate you doing that, and I want to encourage you to please continue to do that. But with that said, I also want to tell everybody a little bit more about your upbringing. You obviously are somebody who is a believer, who is on fire for God. And how did you come into faith?
well, I've always had an awareness and a belief that God's there, right? But the Bible says that even the demons believe and they shudder. But I grew up in a hyper evangelical church, which is interesting. And later on, I started reading the Bible for myself, cover to cover. And at one point, I realized, I need some more context around this. And so I bought John Corson's commentary Bible, which is like, I don't know, 5-6 inches thick. It's 3 different books, and that sucker's thick. And I started reading that every night, and I got through the whole thing, and it gave me an awesome foundation. And so I recommend commentary Bibles for anybody. It's not that we need somebody else's point of view. We need context. Unless we're going to go and do the work for ourselves and study the background of every bit of the Bible, which most of us don't have time to do, I need to find somebody else who's already done that for me and get their commentary on that. And you can get that not in just a Bible, right? I can download Chuck Missler, on Audible and listen to all that. But you got to have something that provides context for the Bible. Because otherwise you get these guys that today they twist it to fit whatever they want to say. And that's extremely dangerous. So I ended up doing that in 2014. And 2014 was a weird year for me. I used deadly force that year. My FTO, which field training officer, that's cop lingo, right? So the guy I spent 3 months with in a car, just the two of us, and he trained me up. In 2014, I was called to a crash. He was the passenger, his son was the driver, and his son was killed, and he was hauled off to the hospital. Later that year, a friend of mine, his wife died of brain cancer, and then just a couple months later, we found out my wife had cancer, and thankfully she survived that. But, that was the pivotal year for me. And I guess you could say I kind of asked for it. Because, you see all these folks, and this is not biblical, okay? So I don't recommend this, but you see all these folks in the Bible who grow from trials. I asked for trials. I'm kind of an idiot because I got them. But that year was pivotal for me because that took me from, okay, yeah, I believe, but I'm living with the world, to I believe and I want to walk with Christ. And so I would say that's the year that made me a Christ follower. I don't want to say Christian. That's such a broad word these days. But I would say that was when I actually developed a relationship with Christ. So I guess that's the background of how I became a follower.
That's good, Adam. It's, as you said, it's in a year like that when you have a lot of those things. It is a year, as for lack of a better term, put up or shut up, right? Where you grow up knowing the things, you grow up hearing the stories, you grow up reading the stories, But all of a sudden, when it's going through something or going to multiple things, in your case, it's really where we either say, God, I am surrendering all of this to you and put it on your hands, or it's when we turn away and walk away. And unfortunately, a lot of times people tend to walk away and say, how come if God really existed, he wouldn't put me through this? But it's really, well, if God really existed, he's going to sustain me through this, and so I obviously applaud you for pressing on and pressing in and being now on the other side of these things. Just how, what an amazing testimony that you have of all the things that I'm sure have come after that tough season. I appreciate you sharing some of that. How did you walked through these trials? Can you share a little bit? Like, was it just reading the Bible and praying? Was there somebody that kind of mentored you and guided you through those times? How did you navigate that storm or that season?
It's kind of hard to find a mentor, especially I guess, in the field that we work in, because I wouldn't say there's very few Christians, but there's a lot of closet Christians, and so it's hard to find a mentor who's outspoken about it and on fire for God. So I don't know that I necessarily had a mentor, at least early on, but eventually I did get connected, and I don't even know that he would listen to this, but he's a former firefighter. He's now a chaplain. A buddy of mine named Dean Aithwaite, who he's actually British, so he came here from England, so still has a thick accent. But I would say if there's anybody, he is one who helped me walk through a lot of these trials. I don't think I knew him back in 2014. That wasn't until later, but it was really just getting into the Word, and it was prayer, and it was. I mean, it was exciting, right? It's a new time in your life, and even though the trials weren't so exciting, actually experiencing the comfort from God, that part was very exciting because you read about it in the Bible, and there's in Revelation, there's the letters to the churches, and there to one of the churches, I don't remember which one specifically, but Jesus said, "Return to your first love." And so that's kind of my first love there in 2014 is when I really started to develop this relationship with God and understand the context of the Bible and started letting the Bible actually do a work in me. Whereas a lot of guys want to critique the Bible, I decided, I'm going to let the Bible actually do work in me, because if this is truly God's word, it's right. And if I disagree with it, I'm wrong, instead of the other way around, instead of saying I disagree with it, so that must be wrong. So I think that, I don't know if this answers your question or not, but I think that's really what started to do the work, was that realization. And kind of going back to something you said earlier, if God's good, he wouldn't put me through this. Well, God is good and I'm not. And that's what a lot of this helped me to realize is, especially in law enforcement, we see the worst of the worst. And so we can really easily compare ourselves to the worst and say, well, I'm pretty good. And even yesterday I was watching The Office again, because it's The Office. Why not watch it again? And there's one part in there where one of the characters says, I consider myself a pretty good person. I'm like, that's not a saved person, because you don't know that you're a wretch. You're a wretched person. And that's what I am. I'm a wretched person in need of a savior. And so any trials that I face, like, I probably deserve this. And I hate that word deserve, because we see it used in the other way in commercials. You deserve a new car. You deserve to be taken care of, all this stuff. No, you don't. No, you don't. You deserve the absolute worst. And that's why grace is grace. But I don't know. That was a long way to answer your question, I guess.
No, I love it. I love it, brother. And I love that, as you said, the word deserving and the word grace that we sometimes don't understand. And the third word that we sometimes don't understand is mercy, right? God was gracious and good enough to give us what we didn't deserve. But the mercy too is like, he's merciful, meaning we deserve probably a lot more, but his mercy is like, I'm just going to give you maybe some of this, and just, he spares us from what we truly deserve. And so I hear you that it's tough, right? It's tough going through those seasons. And I think that one of the things that I am learning, that I have been going through a similar season like that right now in my life. And the thing that we need to be reminded of is not, as you said, is not because I deserve whatever I'm being expected. It is, despite of everything I'm going through, I'm going to walk through this season well. And that's what God, wants for us and expects of us, is to walk through whatever tough season that we're going through, is to walk through it well. We shouldn't be complaining. We shouldn't be grumbling. We should just fix our eyes on Jesus and trust in him that he's going to get us through whatever that tough season is that we're going to get through. And
Yeah, I
so,
agree. And I think there's a time to go to your brothers in Christ and say, I'm dealing with this and I need you to come alongside me in this. But there's also a time to say, no, I'm gonna come before the King because I have a relationship with him. And I truly believe that, in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus said, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted, right? They will receive comfort. And I think that to the degree that we suffer, that's to the degree that the Lord will provide peace. And if we're going outside of Christ, looking for that peace somewhere else, we're not going to receive that peace from Christ, right? And so he is the source. We're supposed to come to the source. But yeah, there is a time to share it with our brothers, right? It's kind of like Solomon said, that with many counselors, there's wisdom. So sometimes that's good, but sometimes we just need to come before the King.
do you see what your trials and your tribulations and this tough season that you went through as something that was able to now solidify you, make you strong, and be that mentor that you felt like was missing at that point in your life? So are you now somebody who is rooted in Christ? You're built your foundation on his rock. And do you feel like you can be that mentor to somebody when they're going through that tough season?
Yeah, I can. And honestly, I get a little bit, I don't know if, I don't know how to put this, PC, but I get a little bit jaded, I guess. So I was a part of a peer support group and I left that. And for a specific reason. The main reason is because I know exactly who, and it's a who, can help somebody through these situations. And a lot of times I'm kind of hamstrung as far as getting to share that, at least in that context. Now, folks know what, my social media stuff and all that. And so I am pretty outspoken about that. And so if somebody comes to me and like, hey, I'm struggling with this, and it does happen, I'm going to be honest with them. And now that I'm not a part of it, this peer support thing, I don't have that, I guess, constraints or restraints. I can just say whatever I want. And I am ordained. And so there's that confidentiality, which is nice. But I can say these things and I don't have to worry about that stuff. Hope that answers your question. I'm not sure. But
No, no, that does. That definitely does. Because I have seen what I'm calling a revival in the fire service, where, as you said earlier, that, back in 2018, you just weren't seeing as many opportunities for ministry in the law enforcement community. I noticed the same thing in the fire service, and that's also one of the reasons why I started doing this, the first things first. I mean, it comes from a biblical perspective where you give God your first fruits. You put the first things first and you give his what it is. And so I see this revival in the fire service, and I see that people are now more hungry for that, for the water, for the truth, for the fountain of truth. And so being able to, as you said, without any restraints or constraints, and being confined to hey, you can help them in this way, but only up to this point. And I think that sometimes is even a blessing to have to remove yourself for something from a group like that, like a peer support, where now you have the freedom to also give somebody spiritual guidance, and really fix what a lot of us are missing, which is that spiritual, I call it spiritual fitness. With the fire department and law enforcement, we're really good at focusing on mental health. Hey, we got to make sure that our mentally ready for the day. We make sure that we're physically fit for the job. We work out, we lift weights, but our spiritual well-being is something that's lacking and missing. And so I think that being somebody where people can come to and ask those questions, and we can share the gospel with them freely without being put in a box by whatever, whether it's a department or whether it's a peer support group or whatever. It really is something that we can share with people and give them the freedom to either accept it or at least be asked questions about it.
Yeah, it is. It's very important, especially as somebody who's walking with the Lord, to be approachable. I mean, if we're living our Christian walk in a way where we're looking down on everybody else, then we've totally missed what Christianity is about. Paul, the longer he walked with the Lord, the more he realized what a wretched state he was in. And that's why ultimately toward the end, he called himself chief of sinners, because he was able to see just how gnarly he was. And the Bible talks a lot about judgment, and people misinterpret that. They think, well, if you call me out on anything that I'm doing wrong, then you are judging me. Well, that's not the case. The word that he often used there was judge to the point of condemnation. And I'm not out to condemn anybody. I can see their fruits. I can see if someone who claims to be a Christian, if their words reflect that, if their lifestyles reflect that, then okay, this is a person who's bearing good fruit. If not, then they're going to look like a tree that's dead. No, they're going to look like the rest of the world. That doesn't mean I'm judging them. I can see it for what it is. And I don't, especially to non-believers, to a non-believer, if they don't follow Jesus, they don't believe in Jesus, they haven't been saved, they're already condemned. What good does it do me to call them out on their sin if they're already condemned? Unless I'm going to use that opportunity to point them to the doctor and tell them, hey, I can see that you're sick. Here's the physician. If all I'm going to do is say, you're sick, you are putrid, or whatever, nobody's going to want to come to approach me. But if they can see the trials that I've been through, they can see the stuff that I've dealt with, and the effect that Christ has had on my life in getting me through those situations, then they're probably going to approach me. And something I do struggle with a little bit is, okay, Lord, where do I be outspoken about this? Where do I approach them? And where do I just wait on the Holy Spirit and let them approach me? And I think the most important thing is to, I don't remember who said this, one of the quote unquote saints, preach the gospel in everything that you do, and when absolutely necessary, use words.
No, I love that. I have used that quote, and I think it's very, very it's a very good stand to live by. Sometimes just the things that we do is ultimately what's going to reflect God on our actions, on our everyday, our day to day. Sometimes it's like you may be the only Jesus that somebody gets to see. And so I think it's very important for us to just be image bearers, be the image of Christ, and shed a light, in this world of, especially in what we do. We see so much darkness, and just I think this is John 1:5. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness shall not overcome it. And so sometimes just being the light in somebody that somebody gets to see one day it speaks more than 1,000 words. But let's talk a little bit about how you actually got into law enforcement. Give us your Genesis story of how you got into doing what you're doing.
Yeah, mine's kind of weird. Never wanted to be a cop. I mean, who wants to be a cop, right? You're everybody's enemy, unless they need you, and then you're good. But the pigs, the donut eaters, whatever. So who wants to take that on themselves? Only the crazy ones, probably. So I have been with the same girl since I was 14 years old, and when I was putting her through college, I was working construction. Putting her through college in criminal justice actually was her major. And she got extra credit if she brought someone to a hiring seminar. So I showed up in middle of summer. I got this farmer tan in my cut off blaze orange t-shirt, and I'm just covered in filth because I was working excavation. And so I show up to this hiring seminar, and the department that ultimately ended up hiring me was the only one that didn't require college education, and it had a paper application. It was perfect for me. So I filled out the application, and I was 20 years old at the time. And so I got myself back into shape because I was a three sport athlete, whatever. Got back into shape, passed all the stuff, did all the study material that I thought would help me get through the written portion, got through that. And I mean, really, even though I wasn't walking with God at the time, it was just a God thing that I got the job. And lo and behold, it's 2008 anyway, and all of the construction and stuff just took a dump, and here I am with a job. I never got laid off. So that's really how I got started in law enforcement, and super young at the time, tested on my 21st birthday. That's about it, man. That's about it.
That's cool. So the job found you instead of you finding the job.
Hmm.
It's pretty much what happened to me. I think we may actually have the same amount of time on the job because you had said 17 and a half years in, and I'm 17 and a half years in right at 2008. So I
Nice.
got picked up, it was like July of 2008, which I think it's about the time that you got picked up. And so different places, different times, but we both got, kind of like stumbled up on the job. So it's really really cool story. I appreciate it, hearing that. So let's talk about this girl that brought you to the job fair. Tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about your wife and kids and what the Cohen family is like.
Yeah, we go back. My wife and I go back a long ways. Because I tried to date her in the sixth grade. She thought it was weird to hold hands, and so she broke up with me. She tried to date me in the eighth grade. I was a cocky eighth grader, and so that didn't work out. And then freshman year, we finally kind of figured it out, and we have been together since. I'm super blessed. I married up. I married way up, and she's the one with the college education, but because of health problems, she never went into law enforcement. She worked for Child Protective Services for a while, which God bless her, because that's harder than what I do. But because of her education, actually, in criminal justice, she gets it. And so and because she's been with me since day one, we've grown together in it. And so I'm on I don't want to be super specific. I'm on a tactical team, I guess you could call it. And that word tactical is funny. I think it just means for men anymore because everything is tactical now, right? But I've been on this team, and I spent 6 years on it initially, and then I came off for 6 years. And the reason was because that became my identity. And when we started having kids, I still prioritized it. And I was gone a lot. Our team covers the state, and so I'm gone a lot. And so initially, especially when we were still serving dynamic warrants, if you know what that is, bust the door down and own the house. The nation doesn't really do that anymore because it's a safety thing, and there's other safer ways to go about it. But when we were doing that, man, we were rocking and rolling. I was gone all the time. And it came to kind of a breaking point, and I had to step back from it. I had to give it up for a while, and it was the right thing to do. Didn't know it was the right thing to do because it didn't feel very good at the time, but it was. It kind of reset things for me, my priorities, and it showed me where they should be, which is great. And now I'm able to go back to that. I've been back for 2.5 years now, and now there's no issue because both of us are walking with the Lord. Both of us understand our priorities, better at time management, and I think that's the risk for being in fire too, right? Is misaligned priorities. And when I started to put God first and family second, that's when things actually started to click and started to work. So my wife has come along that same route. So back in, I mentioned in 2014 how she was diagnosed with cancer. Well, my wife has had lupus since she was 20. And like I said, we've been together since I was 14. And so I've walked with her through all this stuff, and it's always been a challenge. We didn't even think we could have kids, and then God gave us kids. But in 2014, I'll share this short story because it's kind of cool. My wife had lupus, right? And she starts getting these kidney stones out of nowhere, totally random. Gets kidney stone, and it's too big to pass, and so she has to get this stent put in, and we get through that time. Well, then, like a couple months later, she gets it again within like 6 months, I think. And we thought, well, that's weird. We're not doing anything different. This is super weird. Never had kidney stones in her entire life. So she goes back in. They do imaging again. And lo and behold, there's this thing that has grown. And her doctor says, well, this is kind of weird. This mass has grown. And we're like, well, you didn't even tell us there was a mass. So thanks for that. But had she not had a second kidney stone, we would have never known about this thing. He just thought it was a cyst or something like that, which is very common. Well, long story short, she ends up getting the kidney removed, and it's such a weird blessing that these kidney stones occurred, because otherwise we would have never known about this cancer. So she gets kidney removed, totally good. Everything's good for the next 5 years, but she continues to get kidney stones. And we're like, what is going on? You got one kidney now. You can't be getting kidney stones. And finally, my wife, having enough, maybe she should have done this a lot earlier on. She actually just prays, Lord, take these away from me. And he did. And she hasn't had one since. So it's just kind of funny how that all worked out. Through that cancer, that's really what brought me to faith. And it was good that we walked together through that stuff. And of course, there's been other trials and things like that. But I don't think that I've ever been more in love with my wife. And it's pretty cool that she's the only gal that I've ever been with. And, having lupus and that kind of stuff, they say, at least when she was diagnosed with it, they said, well, the average person only lives 10 years after diagnosis. Well, it's been 20 years, and she's still going strong. So it's pretty awesome.
Man, what an amazing story. What a blessing to hear that obviously that your wife is doing well, that she's healthy, and the kids are growing, that your family is flourishing, and all because of your trust and your belief in God. And it's just again, it's a testimony that I think a lot of people appreciate hearing, that when you put your trust and your faith in the Lord, that miracles happen. They still happen. And so it's awesome to hear that, Adam. I appreciate you sharing that. And it's also cool to hear that sometimes it takes, unfortunately, it takes some things like that to kind of give us a wake up call to realize that, hey, the job is still going to be there when you come back. You don't have to put the job ahead of everything else, because we are so much more important. We can make so much more of an impact at home than we can do at work. In 5, 10, 20 years, nobody's going to know who Adam Kowing is in the, department, and nobody's going to know who Helton Pereira is in the fire department. And it's so much more important for us to be the husbands, the fathers, that we need to be at home and be a blessing for our family first. And then we can be a blessing to others everywhere else. So I appreciate you sharing that. And I think it's cool that you share too that it kind of allowed you to, once you put your priorities in the right order, it allowed you now a couple of years later to come back and continue to do what you love to do, whether it's just being on the team or being more engaged and more involved at work. I think it's always important for us. It's what I talk to my wife a lot about, is we talking about love tanks, like it says in the 5 love languages, Gary Chapman's book, is once her love tank is filled and hopefully overflowing up to the brim, then that's when I can go and spend some time doing whatever I like with the fire department, whether it's taking a class, going on a conference, or spending time with the guys at the firehouse. It's once her love tank is full, once that I have given enough attention and taken care of her and the kids at home, I can then take time to pursue the things I love and spend time with the things I love in the fire service. So I think it's really cool to hear that story. I wanted to get into a little bit about just how you put these two things together, how you take the growth that you have experienced in your faith and the job, as we were just talking about, and how do you mash those two things together? How do you, as you said, we see a lot of the dark side of humanity, a lot of the bad things, the people that are in need, and how do you mash those two things, and how do you see your calling in law enforcement through the lens of a Christ follower?
I know law enforcement's a different than the fire field in some ways, and it's similar in others, but I do see myself as a protector. Not that I am great at protecting. A lot of times we show up after the fact, and it's like, well, it would have been nice to be able to protect that person initially when it happened. But sometimes we do arrive when these things are ongoing. And so, and this only kind of hit me here recently, is that because one of your questions that you sent me had to do with, is there a time when you were kind of burnt out? And I think we all go through burnout, regardless of what the profession is. And I've gone through that several times. There's parts of the job that I love and there's parts of the job that I hate. And a lot of times those parts that I hate, it's not that I have to do them more often. It's just that they take more of my focus, I guess. And so along those lines, I have experienced that burnout quite a bit, and so it's only recently, because I've been praying, Lord, give me something else to do. Give me something that provides fulfillment where I can make an impact and this and that. And it finally just kind of hit me, and I don't remember why, but it just kind of hit me. Okay, well, if I'm still here, then God obviously designed me to be a protector, at least in this season. And that doesn't mean that I'll retire from this profession. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll be called to do something else, but I'm open to that calling. But for this season, I'm called to be a protector, and God has put me in several situations where that has absolutely been the case. Situations where you almost gain kind of a reputation for being the guy who just gets into things, right? You're a magnet for these things. So that's kind of been the case for me. And so only recently have I embraced that. And it's kind of a funny journey, I guess. When you first start, it's exciting. You want to do all that cool guy stuff. You make the mistakes. You learn from the mistakes. And then the longer you go, I think everybody hits that point where you hit the wall. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to do anything else, something else, anything else. But a lot of times you just have to get through that. And for me, it was a car-to-car meeting with a lieutenant who I respect a lot. And all he did was listen for the most part. And that's exactly what I needed. I just needed a vent. And for me and for a lot of guys, I think the department I work for has caused me more stress than the job itself. And that was a big part of it. I was tired of that. But that's not really what it's about, right? If God's going to bring you to it, he'll get you through it. And so that for me was a big thing, was just understanding this is where God has me right now in this season. And I'm just going to keep working through it, because there is light on the other side. There's things I enjoy. There's, getting to help people roadside change a tire. There's, like I said, being part of a team and getting to go to these calls. There's a brotherhood there that's developed that we don't usually get at least in, how do I put this? I think city agencies, which I'm not a part of, I think city agencies have more of the camaraderie because they do go more of them to a call and they come back to a common place. But in the area of law enforcement I'm in, I spend the majority of my shift alone. And so when I get to be a part of a team, that's an encouragement for me, because then I get to come together with my brothers and work through these difficult situations. So I'm going to be honest, I forgot what your question was, and
No, that was good. I was just talking about your calling, and I appreciate one thing specifically, and that man, you just helped me out a ton when you're talking about burnout, because even when I wrote the book in a time where I was feeling burnout and I was tired and I was getting ready to do something else. And even like right now, as I'm, I'm doing these podcasts and I'm sharing things online, there's still days that I'm like, man, I'm tired. Like, I'm done. I want to do something else. And I think it's a good reminder that, we're doing this for 20 to 25 years. It's not like we're going to have one burnout in our career and then it's like, oh my gosh, I love the job again. Like, it's awesome for the rest of our career. So I appreciate you saying that. It's a good reminder that there are going to be seasons, and there may be more than one of those seasons where you're going to be tired, where you're going to have that burnout. And it may not be that PTSD. It may not be that one bad call. I think that, and it is one thing that I have learned, and that is one thing that I had to work through, is what you explained as moral injury. And moral injury is a term that I didn't know existed. I had no idea what moral injury was. And unfortunately, just like you shared, I too have suffered a lot more of the headaches and the stresses from things within my department rather than just the calls that I am running. It's whether it's the people that I work with, or whether it's policies and procedures, or whether it's moving in and out of stations, or whether it's other crews, like whatever it is, like there are sometimes that our just organization creates more stress on us, on our families, whether it's switching schedules or completely changing our jobs and our units. and that's stressful, and that is one thing that we don't think about a whole lot. We just assume, oh, it's just a regular stress of the job, but no, it's real, man. It hurts. It's messes with you. It creates anxieties. It keeps you up at night. It keeps you your mental, your physical well-being all gets highly impacted by that. So I appreciate you sharing that those seasons may come more than once, and knowing how to bounce back time and time again. That's what resiliency is, right? That's really what we need to learn from, and it just makes me think of Paul, like the thorn in the flesh. Like that may be somebody's thorn in their flesh, that they, whether they have a bad assignment, or whether they have an officer that they have to work with, or a subordinate they have to work with, that person may be a thorn in their flesh for a time. It may be a thorn in their flesh for time after time, but just having the trust and faith in Jesus that he's going to get us through it. And then if it happens again, he's going to get us through it again, and he's going to get us through it again. And so just learning to be resilient through those seasons, man, it's super encouraging, and super important for us to understand that
Yeah,
it's going to come time and time again.
it is. And a lot of what helped me to get through, the department stuff. And I've said this to guys a lot, the department this, the department that, and it's typical. That's what we talk about, right? We badmouth Big Brother. Okay, that's fine. But if folks would kind of start to understand that it's a machine, it's almost like a business. And whatever the higher ups are doing, whether it's a good idea or a bad idea, whatever they're doing is somebody will come in and think, we're going to make this change. It's going to be great. And the guys down below, we get frustrated because, let's be honest, we don't like change, but this is just a machine. It's not a family. I used to have a boss who would send out emails and it would start with family or dear family or whatever. It's not a family. There's groups of us that are very family like. I've got my guys that I'm on the team with. Those are my brothers. But the guys above that, the guys outside that, maybe not, because the higher up you get, the more you have this responsibility to treat this like a business, and it just becomes a machine. And just like you said early on in our interview, when you leave this job, they're not going to remember you. Maybe I get killed on the job and there'll be a plaque or something in memory of, or something like that. Who cares? Who cares? The folks I come home to, these are the ones that are going to remember me. The guys that I worked alongside with, those are the ones that are going to remember me, right? Those are the ones that we're going to have the stories together. Oh, hey, remember the time that Adam shot out the wrong window with the 40 and this and that? Well, that really happened. And those are the memories, right? But if you want to treat this whole thing like we're all part of a big family, you're just going to get hurt. So
No, I 100% agree with you. I agree with you that there are two things, and I'm sure it's the same as law enforcement. Fire department hate change and the way things are. And so whenever something changes or it doesn't change, we're going to complain either way. We're going to not agree with the changes. So you can't make everybody happy. And the one thing that I say too is, as you said, it's a machine. Whether it's here, whether it's in corporate America, whether it's in a mom and pop business, work's still work, right? At the end of the day, we're getting paid to get things accomplished and getting things done. And we're going to agree with some things, and we're not going to agree with other things. If you don't like the guy or girl you're working with, you could have been in a cubicle where somebody was microwaving fish in the break room and stinks up the place. So it doesn't matter if it's a firehouse or a precinct or an office somewhere. There's going to be conflict, and so we need to know how to relate to one another, how to work well. And I think it's, as we said earlier, different uniforms, but the problems are kind of the same, and the things that we deal with are kind of the same. No, man, I appreciate you sharing that. I want to kind of bring us to a close real quick, and as we wrap up, we talked about family, we talked about your identity, we talked about faith in your calling in law enforcement, but I want to talk about just where you see yourself in the future of your department and law enforcement, and also where do you see thin line believers going?
Boy, so where do I see myself in law enforcement? I don't know. Most of that I leave up to the Lord. There is an assignment that I'm hoping will open up that would not be very bright for me to talk about, but it is outside of patrol. Right now I'm in patrol, which is a good area to be in. You get to make a lot of those contacts with folks who are going through a hard time and hopefully get to help them through that. Longer term, who knows? Who knows? I tried the sergeant thing for a little bit and I got kind of bored. And so I'm not quite ready for that just yet. So I'm not sure exactly where this career will take me. Maybe I'll
Do you,
retire. Maybe I won't.
do you guys do 20 years, 25 years?
I have to do 32 because of the young age that I started. It's 25 years or 53 years old, whichever's longer. And so I got to go to 53.
All right, so you're in the same boat with me. I got another 13 years left. I just turned 40, so we'll get to compare notes here. We'll check in every couple of years to see. But hey, listen,
Sounds,
if you get tired, man, I got an application ready for you. My
yeah,
department's hiring. You can go and work up with Griffin. Griffin is closer to you. You already have the mustache. You're halfway there. If you ever get bored, just come on over the other side. You get to sleep at night, so there's still
that's
time.
tempting. And I'd rather go to Utah than Virginia. So
So, so,
anyway,
so the invitation is open. I know that either of us will love to have you. So
perfect. Well,
yeah, go
you
ahead.
asked about thin line believers real quick. So my vision for that, I would love to be able to do some retreats. Thought I had something ready to go for this spring and that door closed on me, which is fine. It's God's timing. But really for thin line believers, man, I want to be able to bring that to more people, to bring the hope and to encourage people to get into the word. I mean, that's the biggest thing is open your Bible and start reading it. People ask me all the time, well, where do I start? Start at the beginning and finish at the end. For me personally, I read every single day. I don't say this to brag. It's a habit at this point, and my dog won't shut up. But I don't think I've missed a day since 2014, 2015 of getting into scripture. And for me personally, this is how I read the Bible in case anybody wants to kind of mimic this. I start in the New Testament and I start in the Old Testament. I read just the entire thing. So every day I'll open up Old Testament, read a bit, open up New Testament, read a bit. So I start in Genesis and I start in Matthew. And usually by the time I finish the Old Testament, I've gone through the New Testament at least twice. And that way, when you get into stuff like Numbers, where it's like, okay, how many people are in the tribe of Benjamin and Ephraim and blah blah blah. Now I can go to the New Testament, and I can get into that, and it helps me get through this stuff. So that's how I do it. If anybody wants to mimic that, that's the biggest thing that I want thin line believers to encourage people to do. Get in the Word, get to know the God that you believe in, so that when the time comes and we're standing before Him, at least I've got a base knowledge, right?
No, that's awesome, and that's a good Bible study method to get into, and I appreciate you sharing that. And I myself, I am going through the Bible recap right now, doing a little bit more, as you said, doing some digging, reading some commentary, watching some videos along with it every day. And I will echo what you said, man. Get in the Word every day. A physical Bible is even better if you can, but if not, jump on the Bible app. Blue Letter Bible. There's a ton of apps out there too. You can listen if you have a long drive to work, and yeah, definitely get into the Word. I definitely echo that sentiment. But I have this little thing that I have like some quick fire questions for firefighters, but for you, I'm gonna change them up a little bit, okay? And if they are, you can a couple of them you can take as long as short as you want. And just give some people a little idea of what was your first day like on the job? Like going in, since you didn't have any experience, what was your first day out on patrol?
So I think one of the problems with being in law enforcement, and it's probably similar for fire. And by the way, I didn't mention this before. I'm a breacher, so I think we can relate even more. But I think one of the big problems is memory. My memory is awful, and I can blame a lot of things for that. So as far as the first day, I don't really remember a whole lot except for being nervous. My coach at the time was a bit older than me, and he would talk about like Battlestar Galactica and all this crap, and I'm like, I don't know anything about that stuff. Try speaking my language a little bit. Here I am, 21, and he's probably 38 at the time or something like that. We had nothing in common, and so it was me being nervous, trying to learn my area, which I'm bad with the directions anyway. Really, my first day on the job was just a whole lot of being nervous. The longer I went with that guy, the more I grew to love him, and he and I are good friends now. He's retired, but he would mess with me being the young guy. He got somebody to call me Doogie Howser, and I didn't even know who that was at the time, but I know now. Anyway, that day one was just nerves, complete nerves.
Awesome. Well, since you brought the topic of breacher, I was going to ask you about that. So as a breacher, have you ever asked a firefighter if they have a spare Halligan that you could use to breach?
You know what? I have a Halligan, and I'm not sure I've ever been without a Halligan. Firefighters certainly do it better than we do. They get a lot more practice. But I will say this, have just down the road here, so in Oregon, which is where I'm at, the same entity trains firefighters as law enforcement. They're separate, but they fall under the same umbrella. And so I can go down here the road to the fire side and use their breaching door anytime I want. So no, don't need to borrow any equipment from a firefighter, but if one wants to show me any, give me any tips and tricks, I'm open to it.
Man, you are the first breacher that I have heard have his own Halligan, because I can't tell you how many guys have asked us if we have an extra Halligan to let them have or let them borrow. So I am proud of you for having your own Halligan bar and even know what a Halligan bar is. So
Halligan, wedge, sledge, I got it all, man.
You make me so proud. That's one step closer, man, to coming over to the fireside. So all right, that's plus points for you. All right. I don't know if this is an insensitive question or not, but high-speed chase or a foot chase? Which one would you prefer?
I prefer a high-speed chase, but man, policy is so strict on those anymore. I'd have to know exactly, why I'm chasing this guy. It better be a violent felony. Otherwise, I better shut him down and turn around.
Okay. And the last one, I had to. Donuts or muffins?
Man, it's been so long since I've had either one because, I'm getting old and that stuff doesn't just melt off anymore. I'd have to go with muffins just for the density.
All right, you heard it here. Law enforcement guys are now picking muffins over donuts. All right, I don't know if that's for everybody, but at least Adam is muffin.
Either one's going to come with a muffin top, right? I mean...
Here you go. Well, Adam Kowing, my brother, thank you so much for spending some time with me and with my brothers here in the fire service. Now we have a brother on the other side of the line that you guys can reach out to, ask some questions, be encouraged, and as you say, get into the Word daily, more importantly. And I hope that this conversation has blessed you guys. And if you guys want to reach out to Adam, tell them how they can get a hold of you.
Yeah, so the main contact, just like how you got into contact with me, is on Instagram at Thin Line Believers. We're also on Facebook. I think it's like TLB Apparel or something like that. I don't even remember what it was. I'm hardly ever on that thing. If I am, it's just on Marketplace. We have a YouTube channel, but as far as just making contact, or if you just want to do email, adam@thinlinebelievers.com works.
Awesome, brother. Once again, everybody, I just reached out to Adam Kowing on Thin Line Believers. You find him on Instagram, on Facebook, as you said, or send him an email. Adam, thank you so much for coming, spending time with me to have this conversation. And if you liked this podcast, don't forget to share, subscribe, and I hope that this conversation blessed you, it blesses your family. And don't forget to keep the first things first. We'll see you guys next time.